Hello there for all of you beautiful listeners and watchers and followers out there in the community and around the world. Thank you for joining us for the Activated Man Round Table. So excited to have these incredible brothers with me today for this discussion. So we'll go through with some introductions. First off, we have Chris Bygraves up the top. Hi, Chris. Chris is morning, so we'll say morning because for us in Australia it's 7 a.m, but as we go around the circle there'll be some different time zones. So Chris is one of our facilitators at My Health and specializes in Native American healing, and he'll chat a little bit more about his history in healing and all of his different tools and skills as we go through. So thanks for joining us, Chris. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Heading over to Germany, so we say willkommen to Sascha. Thank you for joining us, Sascha. Lovely to have you.
Thank you.
So Sascha, for those of you who've been watching My Health World, our podcast, or listening, Sascha was recently interviewed on that episode as well. So if you want to check out a little bit more about his story after this chat, please skip back just a couple of episodes and you'll see that chat there. Sascha has just written a book, which is extremely exciting, or co-written a book. So he'll be chatting a little bit about the hero's journey in specific to his experience and background in martial arts as well. So we're super excited to have you bring your magic to our roundtable this morning, Sascha. So thank you for coming. Once again, we have Galactic Greg joining us all the way from New York. So thank you for joining us once again, Galactic Greg. Lovely to have you with us. Galactic Greg specializes in herbal medicine as well as healing tools for the activated man, activated females as well. Anyone who's activated. And again, you will have heard Galactic Greg recently on one of our My Health World podcasts, an absolute wealth of knowledge and a beautiful soul. So truly honored to have you sharing the time with us this evening. Greg, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Of course. And then over to Evan Strong. So Evan from Forgotten Origins, we were delighted to join Evan and his father Steve at Uluru last year for the Solstice and Magic Box event, which was life-changing. So Evan has an incredible background of theoretical and practical experience when it comes to all things magic, with a huge dose of science to back it up. So a very, very credible source of information joining us this morning. Thank you. And what time is it for you, Evan?
It's about 8 a.m. So, yeah, I think I'm an hour ahead of you, I think. Yeah,
I think that's right.
Yeah.
So again, welcome. For those of you who are joining us live, if you're watching live, feel free to comment if you have any specific questions for any of us here on the panel this morning. So you would have seen the title of our roundtable today is The Activated Man. Of course, there's other synonyms for activated. So we're awakened, we're holding responsibility, we are here to actually make a difference and to work on ourselves in order to make the world and the universe really a place of peace and harmony. And what's so exciting about having a roundtable is that we'll see different approaches to how this can play out. And what we want to give, all of us here this morning and this evening, what we want to give you as a listener to this chat is some tools that you can actually take away. It doesn't matter whether you're male or female gendered, but some tools that you can take away to move forward and to help become activated yourself. Because if you look at the reverse of activation, and we'll go into this when everyone starts chatting, the opposite of that is actually a sleeping soul. And I don't mean sleeping as in slumber. I mean someone who is simply coasting through life at a low vibration, so they're ineffective at a spiritual level. And of course, we're not here to judge, but we know that if you've carnated at this time, this is an incredible time in the 3D timeline of planet Earth. You have a reason to be here. It doesn't matter, even if you feel a little bit like Neo in the Matrix prior to waking up. If you feel like you're in a mundane job and you don't like your life and you don't like your situation and your circumstances, it can all change the moment before. It can all change now for you. You are the one who can activate. And there are so many, as Carrie Ann always says, there's so many people willing to help you if you're simply looking for the help. So we'll start off with Galactic Greg this morning, because I was fortunate just to chat to Galactic Greg on one of our podcasts, as I mentioned. And as an activated man himself, he comes from a very wise place of, I believe, compassion and kindness when talking to people or when working with people who are not yet activated. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Galactic Greg. In terms of being an activated man specifically, what does that mean to you, and how important is it to be activated in this time, which we so often hear being referred to as a spiritual war?
Well, to be activated during this time, during this amazing time, during this spiritual war is truly a gift. Just a true gift. For me, becoming an activated man was becoming aware. Was not just becoming aware of what was going on without, but what was truly going on within. That's what ascending to higher states of consciousness is. That's what becoming aware is. It is the journey back to self, right? It is the reconnection to self. It is the integration of the ego. It is the integration of all things, both good and bad, traumas, pains, good experiences, bad experiences, everything that you've gone through in your life comes to a head in this now moment, in this time, in this spiritual war. And that's all part of the activation. You're being activated, as well as all of your traumas are being reactivated. All those things that you ignored in your life up until this point are now becoming very, very relevant and very, very prominent. So for me, it was becoming very aware of self, becoming very aware of who I was and what I had been through, and what the next step was going to be for me. So it was looking at all the good and the bad. It was coming to the realization that I have faults, I have failings, I have flaws, and I have been through a lot, and that's okay. That's okay, and that's also part of your awareness rising, is that it's okay to have those faults and to have those pains and to have those wounds. You come to a moment where you integrate those and you embrace them. It's okay. It's okay to be wounded. It's okay. It's okay to have made mistakes. It's okay to have had bad relationships or broken relationships, or it's okay to have had, broken relationships with family, or all you slowly become just more loving of yourself, is what I'm trying to convey. All the good and all the bad, you just start to love all of that, and you integrate that. And when you do that, you start ascending to higher states of consciousness, because within those moments are the opportunities to rise and to grow. And you start ascending to these higher states of consciousness where you just become more aware. You become more aware of what's going on in the outer world and how you react to that. So for me, being the activated man is recognizing both the angelic and the demonic in us all, and using them both as opportunities for growth and for rising and for healing, and therefore transcending that energy to others and being able to use that to help others.
Absolutely beautiful. I was thinking right as you summarized at the end then, Greg, I was thinking, yeah, because I mean, if there's no other point to be alive at the moment, it has to be because we want to help others. We want to help our fellow man. And when we're sitting in a place of victim, defense, or the ego, there's little energy to help others, is there? Um, Integration seems to be a key theme, both in the 2020 timeline and the post 2020 timeline. We call the fifth dimension or fourth dimension as we head up towards the fifth. It's about integration. I hear this often. Is that because, I'm going to hand it over to you, Chris, is that because if the masculine energy sits in a place of the ego, or if the ego energy is higher than the self-love, then we can easily be triggered. So we can be triggered by something unintentional or intentional. And with that defense mechanism, when we go into the ego state, we lose any type of spiritual productivity per se. So how important is it to integrate, things like guilt and shame, those really, you know, those common themed emotions which we all share, but in our own world, we often feel that what we've done is the worst, and we have so much guilt and shame, and we want to hide that so that we don't get judged, and so that, we can still find love out there when, the paradox is that we find so much more love when we embrace the guilt and shame that's actually a common value. So in terms of the activated man for you, Chris, can you speak a little bit about how important it is to integrate the ego, and for you, how you do that, whether or not that's something you just had to do once or if it's on a daily basis?
Thanks, Greg. Wow, the ego, there's a good one. Most men carry that like a badge of honor through their life. Activated man in 2020/2021 for me was 5 basic principles that basically have popped up for me. And this is probably something that a lot of men struggle with. And the first one for me going through a transformation during that year was getting in touch more with your feelings. And I am a very reserved character. I don't show a lot of emotion. And what I found that I needed to become far more emotional, far more vulnerable, caring, nurturing, a better communicator, and realize that it's not the internal world that I'm fighting all the time. That if I can release those emotions, that I'll become a better version of myself. Most of those were around healing that little boy inside, that there was a lot of trauma and a lot of baggage that hadn't been dealt with, that I was carrying this, murky river of mud in the bottom of my guts that I refused to deal with, that I wanted to be this masculine, strong man walking the earth that was brave and strong and was able to deal with a lot of things that were in my way. But that little boy inside, he's been screaming at me since he was born, and I wasn't able to acknowledge him and put my arms around him and go through the processes of letting him know that it's okay to be a vulnerable man in this world. So getting in touch with my feelings was an extraordinary large breakthrough for me to be able to continue to walk this path. And then the second one that I sort of looked at was similarly related, was to not only acknowledge those feelings, that the next one was to express the emotions. And that wasn't just internally, because I was doing it internally and pressing it down. So what I needed to do was express those emotions externally, literally for the world to see. And by doing that, I got a newfound masculinity. I had a newfound strength. There was more dependability. I was able to dive in and grab hold of that warrior self. I was being more honest, because when you're walking around in a skin that's a little bit of ashamed of things that have happened in their past, you tend to be something that you're not, and you portray this image. So your levels of integrity and honesty fall out the door, and people don't see you for exactly who you are. So then it sort of gets you onto my third one, which was really pretty simple, which was a very famous Native American saying, was just do what you know to be right. Just simply do it. And then you become a better version of yourself. If you know that you're walking that path of righteousness, to be able to go, this is what I want to do today, and I'm okay with that. And it doesn't matter if what other people perceive. It's what feels right for me. So just do what you know to be right. Then that leads into one which is probably with most men, is to be courageous. And that can be interpreted so many different ways. Being courageous is about adjusting your current patterns. So that could be that you're lazy, you're stubborn, saying the word "I don't know" when people ask you a question. You've got to adapt. You've got to be versatile. You've got to embrace the current situation. And to be courageous is about being vulnerable. And most men walking this earth usually are so wrapped up in what they're doing. You know, what legacy am I going to leave? How are people perceiving me? You get so wrapped up in what's probably going to be written on your gravestone all your whole life, so that people come and visit you and go, "Oh, what a hero he was." It's not about that. It's about truly being able to shed the labels that he wasn't identified by this or he wasn't identified by that. Because if you look at something, and I'm not necessarily a religious person per se, but I look at, say, someone like Jesus Christ. No one knows what he was. Was he Son of God? Was he a savior? Was he a carpenter? Was he a fisherman? He didn't have any labels. He wasn't Bob the Builder. And that's kind of what we want to be, is, you want to walk this earth literally being an enigma, because that's where the mysticism is. I mean, if you take it from an example, if you walk into a party, someone takes two friends in and introduces you and goes, here's Bob the Builder. Well, everyone just thinks he's Bob the Builder. And then they go, here's Jesus Christ. We don't know what the hell he is. We can't label him. So therefore, people are automatically attracted to that person that has a bit of mysticism about them. And that is about being courageous. That is about being someone that is expressive, being open, and actually willing to tell it how it is, not what you want to hear, not being able to adapt to a conversation and say, well, this person in front of me appears to be nervous or whatever, so I'll be gentle with them. It's about finding that inner strength to say, hey, this is who I am and this is what I stand for. Take it or leave it. And probably the last one is about, which is probably the most important one in 2020/2021, is about becoming reconnected. Reconnected for me is embracing that higher self, tapping into the energy that's innate within you, feeling that vibration, that inner bliss that's actually there. And we can get that a number of ways. You can obviously walk out into nature and feel that this earth is a very special place. And we're very blessed, as Galactic Greg said, to be here during this time of 2020/21. And this is a time to be reconnected. This is a time to realize that there's something bigger than just you, that you are part of an entire large consciousness on this earth. And that reconnection is about getting back to the source, about getting back to everything that feels right within you, living outside of the box. And we are seeing many males, particularly over the last 6 to 12 months, find that reconnection. Not just get up and be a slave Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. There's a lot more to life outside of that. So in answer to your question, Greg, there's 5 basic principles, and it's taken me a year to work that out.
We could make some notes and write a book on that. That was excellent. Yeah, you speak so much about courage and vulnerability, and I think for many men, we've been led astray to think that these two are in opposition. You can either choose to be courageous and be the warrior, or you can have a sensitive side and let your feminine energy show. And that might mean that you're necessarily gay, or that might mean that you're ashamed of your sexuality. It might mean that you're weak. It might mean that you don't have the balls to stand up for yourself, whatever it is. When now is the time to actually embrace our vulnerability. And we realize that with that, we release any trigger, we release any defense mechanism. And that's where the true armor is our aura, isn't it? It has to be our energy field. We can't rely upon these artificial and manufactured shields anymore to try and coast us through life. Evan, for you, last year was a huge year. I'm sure every year is for you because you've written a few books in your time so far. But last year in particular, I think, was such an incredibly powerful year for you, leading up to the opening of the Magic Box, the activation of Uluru. However, it wasn't without its challenges. And so the courage involved for you and for everyone who was present, but most importantly for all of you who actually organized the event at Uluru last year, I can't even fathom the amount of courage due to the setbacks, but also the the constant pulling down and the constant barriers that you were facing. And yet, despite that, the event went off without a hitch. It was perfect, and it led to the activation of, we don't even know how many thousands and millions of people around the world. For you, what does it mean to be courageous? What does it mean to be activated? How important was it to contribute to the event at Uluru? And in this world that we live in now, what's something which you would recommend someone who's watching this, who's feeling like they have the tug to be more courageous, to stand in their power, but they're not yet there? What's something that you think would be advisable to them from your experience, specifically from last year?
Yeah, last year was definitely a year, and in some ways it's continued into this year. But I guess for me, it was an organic process kind of, but I guess lucky in some sense, because looking back now, it all seemed to be pushing in that direction anyway. But it's definitely one of those moments when you look around and there was resistance and all sorts of things going on. So it definitely required vulnerability as well as courageousness, and it's almost like taking a leap of faith. So it's like kind of like, well, it all seems to be pushing me in this direction. I've got the people around me all heading this direction. It's time to just step out. The Hopi talk about everybody stepping into a river and it being scary because the river's flowing fast and there'll be people hanging onto the shore and trying not to drown, all that kind of stuff. But the idea of it is to just go with the flow and to hop into that river. And I always joke with people and go, don't worry, I'll probably be in there, spluttering around. I'll have snacks. It'll be all right. It's definitely a journey. But then part of that saying talks about, you create the information or the space for people to do that, but you can't become attached to whether they hop in or not. So that's been a process for me because, I'm like, come on, everyone, let's do this. And there's a lot of people that just like, oh, no, I can't. Or it's been a process. There's been people I thought definitely would have been in that river and in that direction that have been talking that their whole lives that just aren't. And then other people I would have thought, oh, wow, you're in here too. So that's been a process for me. Just breaking down some of my preconceived ideas about what people are like, because my background's psychology, and then I got a lot into the Gnosticism. So I've always viewed the world in that kind of lens as well. So trying to integrate the divine masculine and feminine into some sort of balance. So I think that's part of the process of being activated in this time at the moment, is to kind of embrace the masculine and the feminine and find some sort of balance between the two, which I've always tried to do. I'm the annoying guy at the pub talking to my friends about my feelings and what's going on when they're trying to watch the football. because I was always motivated when I was doing psychology that when we did suicide intervention, I think, and the figures have probably changed now, but the average woman has about 4 friends they can turn to if everything goes bad for them, and the average man had 0.5. So I thought, well, maybe just try to be different than that, and then show people that you can talk about your feelings and you can cry. I mean, other than a cooking show, which in Australia a lot of men seem to cry in, there are other times when we can do that as well, and that requires vulnerability and courageousness. But I mean, it's still definitely a process, because even post Uluru has been intense, and there's just been moments that I'm like, all right, just take your breath and keep going, and the process of that's quite fascinating. I can sit back a little bit now and go, oh, well, there's that bit of hurt from years ago that pops up, or there's this, there's that. It's amazing to watch it all unfold and kind of let go of this and that as you go through. But probably for me, something that kind of really set me on this path was in my undergrad. I had to do heaps of all things. Instead of exams and assignments, was journaling, was just self-reflection. So I would say to people, if they're kind of like wanting to integrate, would be self-reflect. So whatever way you want to do that, I think it's grounding, and it really, because part of being this awakened man is to kind of deal with your hurt and deal with the trauma. But for me, no better way doing that is to kind of look inwards and work it out, and whether it's writing it on paper or whatever, finding a way to kind of hold on to that and go through that process of examining yourself and going inwards, and which goes back to the Gnostic kind of stuff as well. Yeah.
It truly was an incredible event, and I think even if you're, first of all, if you're not aware of what we're talking about, for anyone out there, again, there is lots of information on both Forgotten Origins website, as well as you can always find it if you scroll back through our My Health World podcast. There's at least 2 episodes which are talking specifically about what happened in Uluru, and there's other videos on YouTube as well. It was such an intense time, and I know for many of the men, gendered males who were present, there was a feeling of deep surrender, release, of our burdens, of our toxic masculine traits. And it was almost as if the feminine energy was coming through the earth during Uluru, during that activation, and telling us that, you know, we could stand strong in our masculinity. We no longer needed to, you know, hold up the battle swords in a way that didn't feel aligned with our soul. So being courageous and embracing and integrating is something which it's a common theme for anyone who wants to activate. So you'll hear those words a lot whenever you're listening to someone talking about moving up in the consciousness levels, becoming awakened or enlightened. And integration from a psychology standpoint, it means exactly that, melting together both the angels and the demons, the good and the bad, the low vibrations, the high vibrations, because self-acceptance has to be a synonym of self-love, doesn't it? It really needs to come together. We can't change who we are, and we don't need to, because we're an expression of God, we're an expression of the universe, and we're here to do a specific job. Our logic mind might not know that, but the universe certainly does. For you, Sascha, so thank you for being so patient. For you, and I know, as I mentioned in the introduction, you've just written a book specifically about how to be a hero, the Hero's Handbook. So I want you to talk about what it means to be a hero. And yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it really broad. I want you to come in and share with us what it means for you to be a hero in 2021.
Good question. First, thank you all for your words before. I thought there's nothing much to add, but well, let's go to that specific question of a hero. I think the whole concept, when we started writing the book, we had to think about how do we sell this concept of the hero. I mean, we did that before with our camps, and we always encountered people who understand this word in the Hollywood kind of sense, and this really overreactive, very often very male aggressive sense of a hero. And we understand it in this very balanced way that the hero's journey is talking about the hero. And this, for me, is actually like the path of enlightenment, the path of activating yourself. Because the hero's journey in the end is escaping the matrix, is understanding the matrix. First in yourself, and then reflecting on the outside. So you cannot really do the hero thing without understanding the reflections and all the traumas you went through, all the conditioning you went through. So it's like all you said before, it's really remembering who you really are. And maybe that in the end is really what the hero is. The hero is just remembering what is inside with all these layers of conditioning and all these identities, all these false identities. And I think, well, for me, this whole process accelerated, especially in 2020, like for all of us, I guess, especially if you're aware this whole thing got very tense. And being activated and being a hero is always a process for me. So I would never call myself a hero or an activated person. I would always only refer to others like you in that sense. But I would just say I'm on my path, and that's all I have to remember, to be on the path and walk the steps. And that is remembering who I am without all the conditioned identities. And that can be so hard. And I think in 2020, leading up to the 21st of December and way over that now, there are always more layers of conditioning that are coming up in myself, and I have to process. It kind of never ends, but still it's an accelerated and a very nice process if you accept it. But the remembering kind of never stops. And I feel in myself that there's so much things coming up, so much things that are questioned in 2020. And that's also one of the, I always also said to my students in martial arts, for me, that's one of the fundamental principles: question everything. Especially what I teach. It's like Buddha once said, you also have to question me. Don't just take the stuff that I said or some people wrote down 200 years later. Just question absolutely everything. And that's not easy. And maybe, I don't know if that's harder for men sometimes, but if you're in your box of this male identity, then it's sometimes very hard to question things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we can all agree. I love that you brought up the matrix as well, Sascha. I think when we're talking about the matrix, first of all, just questioning everything comes back to questioning what you're touching, what you're seeing, anything that the sensory organs are bringing through to you that you believe is real, is in fact not real. Luckily, we've got the beautiful documentary with Keanu Reeves, as I refer to it, to go back to, which really is so truthful. It's quite amazing, because not one thing that exists here in the 3D is actually real, and we're completely in charge of everything that unfolds in front of us. I love, Evan, that you discussed journaling and self-reflection. I study mental health myself, and it's so important because in that process of reflection, we step out of our own identity and we look at ourselves from often more of a place of compassion and empathy, which allows us to break through some significant barriers. For men, as we've all discussed already today, for men that can be more challenging when we look back through history, when we look back through the different ages from the timelines before the present, men have had an interesting role. And I believe it's been quite distorted, at least up until the 21st of December last year. To be activated, to integrate, to question everything, it seems like a lot of pressure for some people. And even for me, sometimes it feels like a lot of pressure. And I know, again, I keep speaking about Uluru, but it is relevant. At Uluru and in the days after Uluru, there was a feeling from myself that, and not just for those who were physically at Uluru, but after the 21st, there was a feeling of a massive release of weight coming off your shoulders, a feeling that you could just sink into the earth and she would embrace you, and you could cry, you could sob, you could do anything you wanted to do, and it would be okay. There was no more judgment. There was no more of this false bravado. Greg, specifically for you and where you're situated at the moment in the Matrix, and you're right there in an interesting situation in the USA, how hard is it for you to continually come back to yourself? Do you ever feel that you're being swayed? Do you ever wake up and think, I don't know if I can do this today, this is a lot of work? Or is it something that's quite easy for you? And more so, is one way right or is one way wrong?
No, there's no right or wrong. And to be completely honest, I will have moments where I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. Or should I take a step back? Should I? That's
a relief. Can I just say that is a relief to hear. I put that question out there and I was like, because that's me sometimes.
No, and it's okay to feel that way. Surrender to it, embrace it, and be the observer in that moment of yourself feeling that way. All right, so you can get to all the nooks and crannies of why you are in that moment and why you are feeling that way. Because in those moments of weakness, gentlemen, it's where we find our strength, right? That's the opportunity to take a step forward and rise above that and be our best selves. That's our opportunity to look at that dense energy and say, I don't subscribe to this. No, I unsubscribe to this, and I subscribe to something much higher and much better and more beneficial for my highest self. So no, I do have those moments. And in fact, I had, to be even more honest, I had a moment just before coming on the show in that moment of observation of myself. I had a very loving but very serious conversation with the dear soul sister of mine, and it got me to that moment where I just said, hey, should I rethink things? Should I reevaluate certain things? Should I take a step back and go a bit more inward and and what I'm doing in this moment, is that correct? Is that right? Should I be doing this or should I be doing that? And in that moment, I sat and I observed that with myself, and it was only for 5 minutes, but within that 5 minutes, that inner strength, just came racing from the bowels of my gut, right? And said, no, you can do this, and no, you will press forward, and you have to be strong for her. Don't become uncourageous just because of what she's dealing with. Become more courageous for her and for yourself and for others. So yeah, no, it's perfectly okay to have those moments and to feel that. Everyone's journey is their own, and everyone's journey is different. The path back to God is going to have your own individual signature on it. It's not going to be anyone else's. It has to be yours. So if you're seeing the person next to you that is just in this absolute 5D state of bliss, and you're just like, oh, I really wish I could be there, that's not a good place for you to be. You don't want to be wishing about what others have or where others are. You need to be focused on you, on self. What does Greg need to do? What does Greg need to achieve? What does Sascha need to achieve? What does Chris need to do? What does Evan need to do? It's about your own journey back to self, because with that journey back to self, you come back to that more heart-centered space, that higher state of consciousness, and you reconnect with God. So it's not about what everyone else is doing. So there's really no right or wrong. I have experienced, periods of time where it is easy and things are just flowing. But as we all know, if you look at the Schumann resonance, and you see those energy spikes, and you see things happening, without the world and without the collective, those energies will affect you. But that's what that's what riding the waves is all about. Sometimes you go up and sometimes you go down. And, going back to what Sascha said earlier, it's embracing that process and surrendering to that process. And that's what God is asking you to do in that moment. He's asking you, hey, let me handle this. Give it to me. Put the burden upon my shoulders and just allow me to carry you the rest of the way. So it's a journey. It's not the destination, gentlemen. It's always about the journey. That's where the fun's at. That's where the real work is done. The destination is the ending point. Why would we want to get to the ending point? We want to keep going, right? We want to keep becoming more aware, becoming, more conscious of things, not just without, but also within. This is and again, going back to what Sascha said, this is a constant process. So we're going to have our ups and downs. We're going to have our woes. We're going to have our days where we're just not with it, right? Where we're just in pain, or we're just hurting, or we're unsure, or we can't be courageous, for others. So then that would be the time to go back within and find that courage within yourself and be courageous for yourself. And it's okay to be courageous for yourself and not for others for a day. Take care of yourself, work on yourself. So it's an up and down process. It's not always a straight line, and everyone's journey is their own, and it's going to be different for everybody. But again, to be quite honest, I have those moments, and that's when I take a step back, I observe, I see myself in those moments, and I look for the strength within, and I take the opportunity to rise above it.
I love that. Do what works for you and keep doing that. Sometimes when I'm in a really good state, my vibration's high, I make a point of thinking, I might not physically write it down. Sometimes I do, but I think, what am I doing at the moment? Am I in the garden? Am I with my dogs? Am I doing a lot of asana? So that if there's days where I feel that I've been pulled from the path, I think, hang on, well, I know what I need to do to get back. Because when you're asking other people, they can only give you advice based on their journey, which is a totally different path. And sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not. We often hear that, the best thing to do is to talk to your wife or talk to your partner. No, the best thing to do is be by yourself. Best thing to do is stay in bed for a week. Best thing to do is just go to the gym and keep working. It doesn't have to be rules like that, I don't think. The best thing to do is, what feels right for you, which brings us back to Evan's point about, reconnecting with your own feelings, and Chris's point as well, reconnecting with your own feelings. So we're gonna open it up now to a proper round table style, so you can jump in whenever you like. In terms of distinguishing when it's appropriate, this is a bit of a nuanced question, so it'll be interesting to see where it goes, but it's just what's coming through. Distinguishing when it's appropriate to rest and when it's appropriate to pick up the sword and to be in battle. For Carrie Ann, who's not with us today, but I know she's watching, so hi, Carrie Ann. She does a lot of her battles when she's meditating and when she's asleep, which I think is incredible, because that's the true fifth dimensional goddess warrior, template. So there's a little bit of pressure for some people listening. There might be a lot of pressure to be more productive, to hustle. We've got the bills, we've got mortgage, we've got a family to look after. But I'm a big believer that equally as important is taking time to rest, to disconnect, to be quiet. If we need a couple of days in bed, that's okay. So for each of you, is that something that resonates with you? Do you think that's important? Or is there more of the just keep soldiering on? As an Aussie, that's something which we were taught back from the 50s and 60s. There were marketing campaigns on the TV saying, if you were sick, take a tablet and just soldier on. That hyper masculine template of saying, well, if I'm a soldier, it doesn't matter what's coming at me because I just have to keep pushing. Is that something that resonates with you guys, or do you think that it's better sometimes to actually just sit in the moment and retreat or rest and be a little bit more like the art of war, a little bit more zen with your approach? So I'll just open it up to whoever feels that it's appropriate for them.
Yeah, well, I guess sorry.
So I was just listening to what. Sorry, I was just listening to what Greg was saying. I had so many things coming in. I think males in walking the earth right now, and even our predecessors, that I think we've been sold literally a false sense of what a male actually is. And for me personally, I don't believe that we are the archetype or the narrative of the male being tough, strong, don't cry, powerful. You're the rock. We can depend on you. There's so much pressure that comes with that male archetype that's what we've got to be. We've just got to be this emotionless piece of clay walking around the earth that we can always rely on them. They'll get the job done. That's a bunch of crap as far as a male is concerned. And we are loving, compassionate, beautiful, graceful. We're even passionate, believe it or not. And that's what we've got to get back to. We can be strong and we can be dependent. We can be that place for children or females or whoever to fall to. But we also have that deep connection within us that needs to flow as well. And that sort of, brings me to being a man is not always about being that level of strength. It is, and if you want to continue to be that male and not tapping into your emotions, and I'm going to get brutal, is you don't have the right to use the word "I'm a man" or "I'm the alpha male." You need to get off your high horse. How dare you disgrace the majesty, the masculinity of the graceful male? You need to stop it, because a true male is not just that person that walks the earth with strength and toughness. He is also that one that works within himself, is able to shed those old skins, go in deeper, become vulnerable, become emotional, all the words that we've used. So getting back to the question, Greg, about when is there a time to lay down the sword and a time to pick it up? The male is always ready to pick up the sword. That's innate within us. But there is a time to lay that sword down too, and rest and sleep and nurture yourself and comfort yourself. Find that love. Go deep within your heart. Have that time to reflect on what your role is here. And sometimes that role is to walk the earth a little bit more gently. It's not always about the bravado and trying to start the wars and I'll save you. It's too much pressure for the male. And that's what creates us having issues with our own psyche. We fall into illness and depression and the levels of stress that are on us day after day after day. I mean, it seriously, in 2021, it's tough being a male because there's so many archetypes that we have to be, and we try to live up to those all the time because we don't want it to be a failure. It's okay to fail. It's in fact, it's imperative that you fail, because then you'll actually go back to ground zero and all you've got is yourself. And once you find out who that person is, that's when the real growth actually takes place.
Beautiful.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, going to what Chris, you just said, and it's an innate characteristic of ours to always be ready and willing to pick up the sword. But and this is something that I've struggled with along on this journey as well too, especially in the beginning, where you feel like everything is happening and there's all this growth and all this wealth of information coming your way, and you're finally stepping into your own. You feel like you have to do it, 24/7. And you feel like you have to be this persona, especially being in the public eye. You have to be this sense of strength and comfort and forceful wisdom and knowledge for everyone on a daily basis. That's fine and all. That's wonderful, but you will slowly or quickly begin to realize how taxing that is on self. How taxing that is on you energetically and physically, and how much that can weigh on your spirit as well. Because when you're giving so much to others, you're giving your energy away. You're not getting anything back. You're not recycling anything back. You're not, I'm trying to know what I'm saying. You're not you're not taking care of your own energy. You're not replenishing
No.
your own energy. You're just giving it away. And that's wonderful and all, serving others and picking up the sword. But there's going to come a moment where you have that burnout and you have that crash. And then comes the realization in that moment where, oh, I haven't really done anything on myself. So I'm ascending to a higher state of consciousness in one way by helping others and by sharing with others and by giving to others. But I haven't given or shared anything with myself. So in one way, I'm up here, but in the other part, I'm actually down. I'm not rising in that area. So that's a tough moment to face, and that's a moment that I actually faced when I hit the wall, and I realized, yeah, I have to take a step back here. I have to step away from the noise, all the information, and all of the giving, and had to start giving to myself. I had to, and it's a hard thing to do, to put that sword down, because we do have that innate characteristic within us to hold that sword and to hold it proudly, and to swing it, and to swing it with force. And that's a hard thing to put down. But yeah, I hit the wall, and I had to take a step back and just journey back to self and give to myself. And in doing so, I was able to put more pieces of my puzzle together and put things together and put things in place that I could therefore be ready to share with everyone else once I did, replenish my energy. So I know that that's a struggle for a lot of men, especially a lot of activated men and a lot of, spiritual warriors out there. But I just want to convey that it's okay to put down the sword. You're not giving up. See, that's what a lot of men think. A lot of men think that you're giving up. You're giving up. You're done. You're giving up. And then there's that program in your mind where you'll think that other people will think that of you as well, and that causes a lot of stress and anxiety. And you're not giving up. You're not exiting the battle. You're not leaving the battle. You're just simply putting the sword down, taking a little sidestep, and resting. Yeah. And by the way, God wants you to do that too. He doesn't want you constantly swinging that sword and wasting your energy. Eventually, he wants you to rest so that you can get back to what you were doing. Because the journey back to God is also the journey back to self, right? They're both hand in hand.
It's such a good point. There's something that just came through when you were
that's
chatting.
hard for a lot of males, but yeah.
If you can imagine a snake in the corner, if it's in the corner, anything that comes near it, it's going to lash out. That's that defense mechanism. But there's a big difference between the masculine energy that just wants to be defensive. It's spitting out anger and hate and starting wars left, right, and center. There's a difference between that and someone who is actually in their power and looking forward. So, Sascha, looking at you, even just sitting there with such majesty, you're such a good listener. You're the quintessential male that has this incredible presence, and yet, you've written a handbook on how to be a hero, and that's something for me. I think, if you don't know all the pieces on the chessboard, how are you going to win if you're only focused on, exactly where yours is? That's something that I know when I grew up, my dad used to get picked on a lot about not being a good listener. And it's because he was just so hypervigilant, thinking, well, I've got to be, working, and then I've got to be providing, and then I've got the mortgage and everything else going on. So were you always a good listener? Were you always able to sit in your energy, Sascha, or was it something that you kind of had to learn and practice? Like, is it a template that you were born with, or did you develop the skills to have patience as a warrior?
Well, people often tell me that I seem to be a good listener and seem to be in my center all the time. Of course, I'm not. I'm just.
Do you just sleep with your eyes open?
Well, for sure, it comes from. Well, I started with martial arts when I was a kid, and I had a very, very harsh training all my life, and then I went to Asia into monasteries and trained with different masters. And that surely gave me a kind of a basic education in being in my center, listening to myself. But I especially getting older, I realize how many of these identities I am still carrying around with me, and how many of these skins I have to shed. But adding to the things that you all said before, I think giving yourself this yin time is so important, and finding a good balance between yin and yang. And I could always live out my yang side in my martial arts. I could be fierce and brutal and nasty, but on the other hand, I'm quite gentle, I guess. And maybe I could also live on my feminine side, on the private part then. But also when males, I often see that in myself and in people around me, when they give themselves this yin time, they often do it in a destructive way. They don't do it. It's more self-pity and just retreating, like this snake who got beaten and then crawls back into the cave. And I think the yin time and the retreat is so important, but you have to do it with self-love. And that's like another little ingredient that we need, and that's so hard to give ourselves. And I think it starts with language. It starts with the words, the spells that we use in ourselves, like affirmations. The things that I think about myself when I retreated 2020. I think I retreated for many times because it was just a bit too much. And then you don't. If you punish yourself for procrastinating, for retreating, for leaving the battlefield, then usually it's not such a constructive and evolving yin time. So you have to add self-love.
Absolutely. You're talking about, I love that from martial arts perspective, it's the same as me with Chinese medicine. It's about looking at the balance of yin and yang rather than looking at we're just an energy of yang. And if we're not present, we're yang deficient, or we're simply just hiding, or we're afraid, or it's not about that. It's about saying we're actually so in our power that we can read our own battery and we know when we need to plug back in, and that's okay. Evan, I've met you and I've met your father, and I see some similarities and some differences. But one thing about your dad is that he can be, look, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel that he could probably overwork himself pretty easily. I get that about him. He's extremely productive, extremely focused. And I think, you're his son, there's probably going to be some similarities there. Do you think you take enough downtime, Evan? Are you pretty good at it?
I'm working on that.
Yeah. So am I right or am I wrong?
We probably spur each other along in that sense.
Okay.
With the sheer amount of stuff that we're trying to do. But yeah, at one point I kind of said, you know what, Dad, like people can't read 3 articles that we pump out a week. I'm struggling to keep up with that. So, maybe 1 a fortnight would be better. So yeah, it's a constant process of adjustment. But yeah, especially that was 2020 for me, trying to actually work out, all right, I haven't had a day off in 3 weeks. Oops, it's happened again. So yeah, it's always kind of adjusting for me. And then really finding those activities that do revitalize you. And for me, it would be gardening and the gym. So without those things, I just kind of slowly unravel. So it's finding those little moments. But yeah, I am trying to integrate that rest time a bit more. And yeah, it's not a defeat. I like what you said there. It's we need to embrace that moment where we're like, right, well, I'm just going to have some time for myself and not see it as a defeat. That's so important. And yeah, I guess 2020 was good at that, kind of saying, hey, take some time. It kind of forced a lot of us, depending where we were, to do that, whether we wanted or not. But yeah, no, it's definitely taught us some stuff. But yeah, that's me anyway. I'm constantly trying to find that balance and constantly questioning everything to kind of go, oh, right, I need some more time for me, or I need to step up here. And I don't always get it right. And that's fine too. I think we need to be kind to ourselves when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And something I have to hold on to. It's like, it's all right, you stuff that up, but next time, you'll be better at that, maybe.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's so many rules, isn't there? Because we come from, at least those of us in our, generation, we come from the, working 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, and all you have to do is get a mortgage. And there's so many, yang rules that kind of govern this template of being a successful man. But as someone who lived in Japan for a while, watching how hard the male figure in, at least where I was living in Tokyo, how hard they work, and yet looking at mental health and looking at the incredibly high suicide rate back then, and it was around 2005, 2006 when I was living there, it really occurred to me that there was something about this work ethic and these rules that wasn't feeding their soul and wasn't really feeding their passion. But there was still a sense of honor there as well. So I do think it's important that as an activated male, we learn how much rest we need and how productive we can be when we're resting. But it's not up for us to tell you. And if you're a female listening to this, we can't tell you what to tell your husband either. We have to feel it within ourselves. How much I need is going to be different from Chris and Sascha and Greg and Evan. But once we have our own clear boundaries and our own clear purpose, and once we can listen to ourselves through rituals, which we're about to discuss, then we can say without any shame or guilt, actually, that day is not good for me. That's, you can say you're busy if you want to. There's often times where I say, no, that Sunday I'm busy, but my busy might be me lying down for 8 hours watching TV. That's cool. I schedule in that time with no guilt or shame, because I know that then I'll be more productive the following day. So there's a couple more things we're going to chat about just before we start to wind it up. But I'd like to go through just quickly now and discuss some rituals which are important to you. So we, at My Health, with our yoga training, we often talk about rituals in terms of journaling, chanting, asana practice, meditation, pranayama, visualization, manifesting. There's so many that are relevant to yoga, but with each of your different specialities and backgrounds, I'm hoping that you can bring even more flavor to the daily rituals. And also, whether or not you think that there are days that you need to be a little bit more disciplined. Someone said to me the other day, how are you motivated to get up at that time? Or how are you motivated to meditate every day? For me, there was a period of discipline where I had to say, you know what, Greg, I know you want to do that, but you've told yourself that meditation is what makes you feel good. So you need to unroll the mat and get on the mat. For me, that was a bit of discipline, and then it became habitual. So we'll start with Chris, and we'll just go around. What rituals are you doing on a daily basis? How often do you do them? What's important for you in order to stay activated, in order to keep your yin and yang energy balanced?
Quite a lot, actually, particularly over the last 12 months. Prior to 2020 occurring, I was probably not concentrating on looking after myself, and I more mean on a emotional sort of basis. I obviously, from a physical point of view, which most males do, that go to the gym, do whatever you have to do, go for a walk, certainly was very heavily involved in the physical side of making sure that you're fit and healthy. But certainly the internal side, those emotions. And what I've had to find is, probably like most men out there, I run an extraordinarily busy business, and with lots of staff, and it takes up all your time pretty much. The only 2 days you get off is your Saturday, Sunday, which is this crap matrix that we've been told we have to have, is you get 2 days at the end after you've been a good boy and worked your guts out. And what I've had to try and find is what I call space and time, is getting back to just those pockets of having that silence, just nothing, as no phones ringing, no one bitching and moaning at me at the other end going, I can't turn up to work today because I've got this and I've got that. And it's kind of one of those things where you've got to pull away from society, because society it's like a disease. It pulls you into all of their troubles and all of the energy that they're going through, and you feel you've got to save them and be this and be that. And being a leader and and a business owner, you feel like all these people are coming at you, and it's all their personal problems. So that space and time and that silence is something where I'm just trying to find pockets where I do meditate. And meditate for me isn't just sitting in the lotus position and booming my till the cows come home, and which a lot of people sort of think that's the way you go. Meditation is more. Meditation is gardening, walking in nature, patting the dogs, doing some yoga, just breathing, looking at the stars. There's just so many things that you can do that create that level of silence and shut down and peace. Just give yourself 5, 10, 15 minutes just to shut the world out and concentrate and just go into that third eye and honor those little visions that are coming in there, those signs, those messages, those things that are popping in. And in that 10, 15 minutes, it's not about solving the world's issues. It's actually about getting back to self, which we've said that word a lot. And that is about nurturing yourself and going, I am tired. I do need some time out. Some other things, which is probably big at this time too, particularly in the year 2021, is probably just cleaning up a few of the vices in your life as well. And that can be, you know, your diet or bad habits. Maybe you're drinking too much, or taking the pain away by going to the pub and having 16 schooners instead of 2 beers. It's those sorts of things. Is about being aware of the types of things that you're putting into your body. Are you cleansing? Are you giving yourself the best opportunity to be a bit pure, feeling better, being activated, being at the top of your game? And that's an important part, because there's so much rubbish in this world and we're consuming it literally. And it's making us be more murky. It's making us dumb down, and it's making us at a lower vibration. So if you can do that, you then learn to trust yourself again. You start to, instead of taking all the external advice, you're taking the internal advice and going, well, you know, going down and getting a Big Mac each day for breakfast isn't necessarily your best option. You've got to trust yourself and go, well, hang on a sec, maybe I can make something more beautiful at home and be at peace in my own castle, in my own little area, my own space, and honor that. And once you sort of start trusting yourself, for me, you become playful again. You know, you get excited about life. You start laughing more. You start laughing at your bloody self because of all the decisions that you make that are coinciding with society's rules. And that's, again, I said it an hour ago, is if you're being playful, you're starting to tap into that little boy again. You know, we lose that sense of having to be so mature in this world as a male, and we sometimes don't play with that little boy anymore, that little guy inside that used to ride his bike and, you know, used to swim in the ocean and surf and play footy and all those things. It's okay to experience all those later into your life as well. So they're just some mechanisms and some tools that I find that, you know, simplifying things. Stop creating chaos in your life, because, you know, when you're chaotic and you're filling in all the spaces, at what point can you actually be creative in this world? And what point can you get back to God, back to the source, back to a beautiful vibration? Because you're filling in all of the space. There's no time for you. And there's some things that hopefully males can take and implement into their life.
Love it. So, Sascha, hand over to you. What kind of daily rituals does a martial artist do?
Well, I think in my lifetime it always changes. Sometimes I have this kind of monastic times where I do the whole day training, especially when we have camps or I have excursions or whatever. I think for my daily life, it's very important to keep up at least a fraction of it, because we live, like Chris said, we live in a society which is not helpful to our energy, which is all the time constantly influencing and pushing it down. So I need this kind of hygiene of my inner self. And what I do at the moment is what we do it in our camps, and we call it the Hero Wake Up Training. And the idea behind it is that I want to have everything in my morning routine already. So what I do with my partner is we start with breath work, then meditation, then there's some journaling part and some gratefulness exercises, then there is physical activation, and then there is a haka in the end, with some very affirmative and strong words to pump us for a really great day. And I so much feel the difference when I don't do it to the days when I do it, and we try to do it every day. And even if then the rest of the day is stressful, well, I already have this activation of all the kind of aspects of my life. So I would just suggest pick up anything. Meditation would definitely be my first choice if I only have time for that. But otherwise, I just love to use the whole plethora of things that I have available. And maybe one thing for people, for myself, when I don't feel the energy to do it, but what helps me is to kind of get an identity. Even if I talked about that identities are not a good thing before, but identities can be a very helpful tool, because if in your whatever identity you have as a male or female, when getting up in the morning and having a routine as part of that identity is much easier to do it than it just is totally out of the equation for your identity to meditate. So that would be a tip to kind of sneak it into the self-perception you have, that you are this kind of guy who gets up in the morning or in the evening does something good.
I love that. You know, there's so much available, so many resources available. If you have the internet, which most of us do in our hands all day long, you have access to YouTube and BitChute and a bunch of other online resources, as well as blogs and vlogs and websites. Yes, the internet has its vices, but at the same time, if you're listening to this and going, I wouldn't even know where to start, type into YouTube 5-minute meditation for anxiety and see what comes up. Put your headphones in and just do it. Keep it really simple and do that for a week, and then up it to 10 minutes. But you'll be amazed at how many free resources are actually available. I know in Australia we have a bunch of charities and resources specifically for men as well, and they often will list face-to-face gatherings or group gatherings where men can meet and chat about struggles and stress, and they teach you how to meditate, they teach you how to connect and talk about your feelings. It's worth doing, guys, because you might feel that you're going to be judged, or you might be ashamed, but the alternative is that you keep living a life of friction and struggle and pain. And you know, if there's even a glimmer of you that thinks I deserve a little bit better than what I've got right now, you're the one that's going to have to take the step. You know, as an adult male, as an activated male, you're the one who's going to have to, you know, put it into motion and get those wheels turning. So, Galactic Greg, what about you? So, what kind of is the daily rituals that are part of your routine or part of your disciplined, connection to self?
Yeah, I start my day with a specific herbal regimen that not just resonates with me physically, but resonates with me spiritually. These are specific herbs, vitamins and minerals that, after much trial and error, as many herbalists do, have found not just resonate with the physical body, but with the metaphysical as well. So I start my day with that. When I need a break from all the busyness and the chaos or the battlefield or just people or society, for me, it's grabbing these little guys, my crystals and my stones. All right, just holding on to them. All right, feeling them in my hand, feeling something real in my hand, something from the mother, something energetic from my hand. That gives me just a true sense of comfort. I don't mean to make it sound like a pacifier or anything, but it is an energetic one on many levels, and it's a chance for your body, your skin to touch something very, very real, which is very grounding. All right, so I do that. I later in the day, I will take some fermented holy basil and some alkaline water. And then I will allow that to just sift into my cells and into my spirit, and I will turn on some 528 or 432 hertz meditation or flute music, and I will just sit in silence, and I'll turn off all the lights, and I'll just let the process unfold and just work on my breathing and just sit. And many times I will slip into such a deep meditation that I will actually fall asleep, which for me is very, very good. That's a good way for me to gauge just how much rest I actually need. There's a lot of times where I'll do a meditation where it's a deep meditation, but I'm still aware. I'm still, conscious. And then there's other ones that will slip into an unconscious mode, and I'll wake up, come out of it, and I'll be like, wow, I needed that, because you'll feel the difference, and you'll feel the true difference. Like, oh yeah, I really needed to slip even deeper under, I needed that. After that, it's just disconnection from disconnection from the phone, just relaxing on the couch. And as you said, there's so many things out there for us. If you have the internet, there's so many channels on YouTube, and there's so many good people out there who have positive, uplifting channels. There's many things you can watch on TV that are positive and uplifting, even though I know that sounds crazy, but there is. For me, it's watching something about animals or nature. Again, getting back into something real, connecting with the mother. There's channels on YouTube. There's channels like Big Living Tiny House on YouTube. That is a very, very uplifting, very relaxing channel. Soft music. It's it has a really great frequency to it. It's really nice to watch something like that, and puts a smile on your face, puts you in a good place. There's many things out there. Many tools and many options for people to still be connected to the electronics, but be connected in a more positive, more uplifting way, and be connected to that higher frequency, and therefore be connected to that higher self, and just kind of ease into that good evening, relax yourself, cut those energetic cords, and just kind of ease into a good night, and therefore, start the next day on a good note. That's what it's about for me. It's just simple disconnection, cutting cords, and connecting to that higher frequency, and therefore vibrating at my higher self.
Yeah, love that. I love that there's so many similarities in our rituals. It's really interesting. I've always loved sitting on the couch watching TV. That's, the Homer Simpson in me, and that's cool. I embrace it. But, if I'm going to sit there and watch TV for an hour or 2 hours, there are some amazing documentaries on Netflix. There's some amazing documentaries on YouTube. And people are often surprised to hear the main things that I look at, which seem to not really fit my personality. But I love documentaries about cars, how cars work. I love looking at big ships and buildings and technology and how they're created, as well as ancient history. I love learning about, how the Colosseum operated, just things like that, which might not necessarily seem to be helping, the spiritual battle. But for me, it's downtime, and it's about just disconnecting, but feeling that, there's some good stuff to learn. It's also about just keeping your brain active as well, and keeping your heart open and going, wow, that's cool. Anything to do with animals, I've watched basically everything on YouTube that there is about dogs, and snakes I love as well. But I love that you mentioned living big in a tiny house, because that got me through 2020. By the end of 2020, I think my other half was worried that I was about to go bush and set up a tiny house. And you know what? It's on the plan. It's going to happen one day. I don't know when, but it will. Because so if you haven't checked out some of the tiny house clips on YouTube, they're just incredible. They're so cool. And it's Zen. There's an element of meditation when you're sitting there and you're just listening to a nice calm voice and talking about someone who's being productive, but in a really beautiful way that's connected to nature. Evan, so you chatted a little bit about journaling when you were studying, but is there anything you do or that you want to start doing on a daily basis at the moment to kind of keep your cup full when you're being so productive?
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of the routine in the morning as well. So
cool.
I'm a little bit lost without it. So yeah, for me, it's my 28 ingredient smoothie with all the, maca powder and acai and everything like that. Just even that process, putting it in there is almost kind of meditative, because the idea of by the time I'm finished, I could basically just live off that thing. I'll start introducing some medicinal mushrooms into it as well. There's always room for improvement, but I can't stress enough the importance of getting your hands in the earth, whether it be gardening or something like that. Like that's a big part of what I do. But something I'm going to do more of since post Uluru is because that conduit is now open for anyone. It doesn't have to be at a given time anymore now that it's on. So I'm going to try to start doing that intention thing every few days, twice a week, whatever, and incorporate that into my life, just sitting on the earth and facing the direction of Uluru and just tapping into that connection that we all had. And at last estimate, it's around 15 million people that were in on that, and to feel that energy physically in the earth, to have my arms shaking when I was there, as I had my hands in the earth. Like, yeah, I want to keep that connection going and keep that conduit. So, yeah, I'll incorporate that more into my life, coupled with my love of gardening, the gym, my kind of supplement routine and vitamins. And then, I'm also trying to, I've always had people, like acupuncturists and stuff like that. I've always had that treatment. So I'm trying to keep more of that going, as opposed to, Chinese medicine, like, it's the best. So, just, it's like, a monthly overhaul, kind of like you would service your car. Why not service the body as well and keep on top of everything? And I think I've probably got 3 or 4 people basically on retainer following me around. But it's the best. But also, I'm a big fan of the media and television. I've got a home theatre set up, so for me, it's finding that movie that's got that little bit of that message in there, that awakening message in there. And there's a lot. If you open your eyes, there's a lot of stuff, and it might even also be every now and again a stupid comedy, because don't underestimate laughing. I've got my certain shows I'll come back to every time, and I've had a few people go, "What would you be watching that?" And I mean, it's not reality television crap, but it's just something to make you laugh and to switch you off a little bit, and that's very important. But when it comes to house stuff, I'm a big fan of the tiny house stuff, but also grand design.
Yes.
And also River Cottage. That's that escape. Originally it was a British one, but they have an Australian one too. So it's like the sea change. Like, I've had enough of the city. I'm gonna rear my own sheep, make my own cheese, make a felt hat. So it kind of gets you back down to that level as well. So and it's always like a nice shot scenery, but throw in David Attenborough and some animals, which is always good too. So, because I do find there's a lot of people going, "Oh no, you shouldn't be watching any of that stuff," and I'm like, no, it's whatever you can find your bliss in, your centeredness. Why not?
Yeah, it's your reality, and you take from it what's appropriate and aligned for you. Absolutely agree. So we've had a beautiful comment from Sue watching in the UK. So thanks for your support, as well as everyone else who's tuned in today to stick with us. A nice quote from Deline, which I'll mention now. And she's quoting from a source that she can't remember, but this is a nice quote to summarize. We have a tendency to think in terms of doing and not in terms of being. We think that when we are not doing anything, we are wasting our time, but that's not true. Our time is first of all for us to be what? To be alive, to be peaceful, joyful, and loving. And that is what the world needs most. I absolutely love that. Thank you so much, Delene. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Apologize if I'm not. I think that's a beautiful quote, and that's exactly where we're coming from as activated men. So for you watching us, whether or not you're gendered male or female, and you're thinking, these guys seem to have it all together, that's actually a little bit of a misconception, because we come as a brotherhood, we come as a divine collective, if you will, and if nothing else, the post-2020 virtual world, as we call it at My Health, the fifth dimension, where we can tap in either through the pineal gland or through an online chat, whichever way we choose. It shows that there's no more barriers between us. So if there's someone that you haven't spoken to in a while, if there's someone who you really resonate with and you wish that you could connect to, just reach out, because at the right time, the right person will be there for you. I'm going to throw out a little bit of an activated masculine challenge for our roundtable guests to finalize. So I'm going to ask you, fellow activated men, we'll go around this once more. And if you can, in just one sentence, I'd like you to tell our listeners just one thing which you absolutely love and approve about yourself. So for me, I'm putting myself on the spot because this only just came through. I love that I'm able to channel and connect to the higher realms or the higher vibration, and then help others with this channeling. So that's a really, really good gift that I was given, an incredible gift, and I love that I have that. Chris, I'll hand it over to you.
Wow, big question. First thing that's popped into my mind is that we currently live in what I would say the third or fourth dimension here at the moment, which makes us very sensory driven. So, we use our touch, taste, sight, sound, smell, and we walk around in that every day for survival. And what I found is being able to, there was one element of that that's missing, which is feeling. And for me, that's the staircase to get into the fifth. That's a bit more freedom. And one thing I've found is that what I've been doing this year is connecting a lot more to something that was really innate in me when I was a little boy, which was the stars. And I used to sit outside all the time as a little boy and just be absolutely fascinated looking at the stars. And I used to draw lines between them, and that would create pictures in my mind. So what I found is I'm going back to that, is that I'm finding that it's not just walking outside and going, oh, wow, what a pretty light show. They're all in their given area where they should be. And that looks absolutely spectacular. When you spend 5-10 minutes and you actually just offer yourself a little bit of time and you start to look at them a little bit more with loving intensity, that things appear. And when they appear, it means that you're seeing something that's called beyond the stars. And we can bring that into our life. And I'll give you an example is, when you've got people in front of you, all we see is our physicality, is you see what they're saying, their vibration, what they look like. And humans, they're chameleons. They shapeshift, they lie, they deceive, they manipulate, they do whatever they want in front of you to give you an interpretation of what's going on. And sometimes if you use that same star analogy, if you see what's beyond that, because you're not using those sensories in the third and fourth dimension, you're using the fifth dimension, is you're feeling that person, that vibration. You actually get to the truth. You actually understand what's in front of you. You start to read energy. You start to know whether that person is there for you to be able to be something that's of benefit. So that's something that I've taken into this realm of where I sit right now, is I'm using all those God-gift sensories that I was given in the third and fourth, but I've added a sixth. I've added the feeling.
Love that.
And that's created for me, as I said, that's my stairway, my pathway into the fifth, to be able to be more genuine and be more. That's my survival mechanism now, is understand what's around you. So thank you to the stars for opening yourselves up again and allowing me to bring that into my life moving forward. So that's just a simple childhood thing that's I've learned, I've remembered, I've learned to remember who I am again, not be dictated to, and not be literally the man in the box. I
Love
want
it.
to burst open the box and be a true, authentic self. So that's my final thoughts.
Thank you, Chris. Sascha, what do you love about yourself?
Well, something that comes up this moment is we talked about vulnerability. So I would say I love about myself that I can be gentle, I can be cute, something that you're not supposed to be as a male. I can be kind, but I can also be fierce and angry, and I can be all of that. And I love it when I accept it, that I can be all of this.
You love it when you accept that you can be all of those in one.
Yes, I can embody all of that, and I don't have to hide any of it.
So let's go to Evan. Oh, sorry. Hang on one second. There you go, Evan.
Yeah, I guess when it comes to me, other than my hair, just joking.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I've always kind of been, even my dark moments, liked is my kind of perspective of drawing, deconstructing and reconstructing. So whether it's looking at the world through this lens, going, okay, whether it's something more like our conditioning, what it is to be a man, or thing I love doing the most is when it comes to the research is drawing together completely unrelated things and then finding relation between them, because it's all connected. So whether it's finding Gnosticism within pop culture, or within some within Tool songs or Pussifer songs or Perfect Circle or whatever, and then going through and finding Joseph Campbell's hero's journey in so much of the movies we watch. So for me, it's holding on to that kind of cause and effect, and what's really going on here. There's more connection than we realize, and yeah, just seeing history replay so kind of global integrative perspective, that's what I hold on to the most. And I'm thankful that I do have some sort of vision and drawing together things that may not necessarily at the surface seem connected, but are. So
Yeah, I love that. So you can almost extrapolate from all of these different sources a common theme, and then apply that to your beliefs for your audience. And it's a really, really good skill to have. Galactic Greg, what do you most love about yourself?
Well, I love that I can accept all parts of myself. That's been the biggest part of this journey up until this now moment, is the integration and accepting all parts of myself, and also discovering different parts of myself along the way, not just through self, but through others. So knowing that I can be both a smart ass and polite at the same time, knowing I can be kind and gentle, or fierce and strong, knowing that I can be the healer, or I can be the one that pushes back and says, no, not today. Knowing when enough is enough and I have to step away, knowing when to recognize that I need rest, rather than before, when I just kept plugging along and kept, giving away that energy. For me, it's just a full culmination of, remembering who I am as a person, and remembering, essentially what I'm here to do, and that's to serve others, not just to heal in my own individual journey, but to help others heal in their own individual journeys as well, and connect with the collective. Something that I never thought would ever be possible, but is now relevant in the now moment. So I guess you could say that I love that I can embrace something as massive as this, even though, as I stated earlier, that, I'll have my moments where I want to, walk away from it. And I'm sure we all do. But, and I'm happy that I can recognize that as well. I can recognize the ups and downs, and I can identify the waves and ride them and just surrender to the process. That's another thing that I love too, is that just as more and more time goes on, I'm just surrendering to the process. I'm just letting it go. Certain things we are in this 3D, 4D reality, but I love how I can walk through this reality and everything that's going on, and within that reality, all the nonsense, COVID and all that other garbage that's going on, it doesn't exist in my field. It doesn't permeate my field. I hear it. I see it. I see other people experiencing it. We all do. And we can sometimes feel the energies of those people, but we're not allowing it to drag us down. And I love that now. And that's all part of the surrender to the process. It's just being able to know that there is an almighty, there is a powerful, powerful source energy that is completely and totally in control. And that is just asking you to give him your burdens and put them on my shoulders. I just love how I am just able to embrace that and surrender to that process. And by doing so, able to lift all the stress and fears and anxiety off myself, and able to heal and to ascend into a more heart-centered space, into a higher state of consciousness. So I guess you could say I love the whole process, and me being in it, and me being able to be a part of it, and you gentlemen being able to be a part of it as well. What a gift this is, to be a part of this today with all you gentlemen, and to be able to share this. This is not just the individual journey. It's also as a collective, and as a tribe, as a people, as one. So I love that I'm able to embrace something like this that is just beyond massive, and how many others have not become aware or become conscious of this, and become aware of conscious of the gift that this is, and the grace that this is. So yeah,
absolutely. It's never too late. Zoe Fields, Carrie Ann's mother, who's one of our facilitators at My Health, she often says it can all happen the moment before, and it can all happen right now. There's one thing about being activated, and I think me asking that question, putting these gentlemen on the spot just then, I think it proved my point. An activated man is one who knows himself and loves himself, because we can only stand in our power when we are truly loving beings, both internally and externally. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me. What a powerful, candid, robust discussion we've had this morning. Or this evening, depending on where you are. I know this will be shared around different platforms, so there'll be different comments that we'll be watching, and different viewers from around the world, which is incredible, and that's one of the beautiful things about these roundtables. But a sincere thank you on behalf of Carrie Ann from My Health World as well, and myself, the host of My Health World podcast. Thank you, Chris, Sascha, Evan, and Galactic Greg for joining me for this chat. For those of you who have resonated with this image, we encourage you to comment below, tag anyone, whether they be male or female, children or animals, tag below, because the more people that can watch and listen, the more that we can help share this message. And feel free to share this as well on your portals and to anyone that you're working with. And peace be with you, loving energy be with you. Thank you again, gentlemen. Beautiful chat.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.